What is going on? We are back here with another video this week, and it's another part of my beginner series set. And again, I want to be looking at basically top synergistic teams. We're going to be looking at top 3 teams that we're going to be looking at today to essentially, if you were to start the game again or if you're new to the game, hopefully, you know, with all the different teams out there and all the different characters, you know, it is a little bit mind-boggling. So obviously, you know, what teams should I invest in from day one? I do decide these teams based on the fact of they are available to the free-to-play community base. So obviously, being able to farm them, being able to essentially use them from starting this game on without putting any money into the game. That makes that's a deciding factor. Another deciding factor is the fact that these teams have great late game potential. They translate well, and that way when you're putting time and resources into these teams, you're not going to be just wasting it away, and you won't be touching these guys ever again. Essentially what I'm focusing here is you're using these teams further down the game path in either Fear the Darkness, which is essentially the hardest game mode in the game, or Arena, which is, you know, high-end arena where you want to be scoring up in the top, essentially the top 100 or 200 to get top rewards. Or even just regularly, using them in raids or the blitz on a regular basis. And obviously, these teams are geared towards success, and it is nice they are able to essentially be farmable by the free-to-play community base as well. So hopefully you guys can find this useful. Okay, so let's get this party started. So right off the bat here, we've got the defenders. I've got them as one of the top 3 best teams to essentially put resources in because of how powerful they are late game. These guys are amazing. Punisher is not in this, but again, the core set for these guys is Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones. So I'm just gonna briefly go into these guys, and that way, hopefully, you guys can kind of see why I picked them, and henceforth. Iron Fist, he's great because of the fact that he has so much heals. He's got great healing prowess early on, essentially with his passive. On spawn, he can basically give the defenders 30% of his total health. And again, he also has a secondary heal as well with his inner piece, and that clears all the negatives from himself. And he's very easy to obtain early on in the game, Nexus 1-9. So you can farm him right away from the get-go, essentially on your way leveling from 0 to 50. Yeah, like I said, he's just easily. It's nice when they added him into the player character base, and you can farm him that way. That was really nice when Fox Next decided to do that. And on top of that, his passive, Son of Kowloon, this passive is so good in Alliance Wars. So this translates really well, especially with competitive Alliance Wars. On spawn, essentially when the defenders team is played against, if they survive and then another player attacks them again, he has the potential to essentially heal his allies just on turn when he starts the battle. So again, he's just so good. So in terms of farming, you can get him early on. He's fairly easy to unlock because he doesn't require much. He only needs 45 shards to get him unlocked. So you don't need like 180 like Ultimus, or you don't need like 6 stars, which is like, I don't know, like 500 some character shards like Phoenix. So he's great from the get-go. And on top of that, the defenders team also works really well in raids and in the blitz. So these guys are sure to win blitz teams as well, especially if you're a competitive blitzer. And obviously, like I said, if you spend time and resources on him early on, you'll definitely won't regret it. So Jessica Jones, again, just like Iron Fist, a very, very, very easy to obtain. She is farmable as well early on in the get-go. You can basically farm her in 2 nodes, and you can get her right off the bat there on your way, leveling 0 to 50. She's one of the best heroes in terms of removing debuffs. So she is actually one of the best heroes to use in Fear the Darkness. Because of how she can just clear negatives from allies. They don't have to be defenders, so this works out really well. For me, I had Groot when I was doing Fear the Darkness, so he was my debuff remover, and she does a way better job because not only does she remove debuffs, she also generates energy. So this is really good for Fear the Darkness if you have additional defender allies, and she basically just amps them up. Not to mention, her passive also gives city allies, so Luke Cage and Iron Fist, additional resistance. And again, this is really great because if you're trying to resist stuns or resist debuffs, again, same thing. It just works out really good, and she's just really powerful overall. She's got one of the best ults in the game, I would say, just in terms of debuff removal. Just because she gets 100,000% extra focus for her attack, so this makes her incredibly very efficient at removing taunts. So when you're up against a Juggernaut or a Thanos and they've got an unremovable taunt, or what feels like an unremovable taunt, this ult of hers can basically rip it right off. My Jessica Jones, she's tried to take off debuffs, to try to take off taunts from Colossus, and she hasn't been successful. So I mean, she can basically remove every taunt in the game except for Colossus, just because he gets so much resistance. And like I said, it might be because mine's pretty, she isn't tier 13 yet, so she's not as powerful as the ones I've played against in the arena, but who knows? I'm not too sure if it's just because Colossus has way more resistance. But the only taunt that she can't seem to take off is in the arena when I'm up against a tier 13 5-star, 4-star Colossus. And that's pretty much what I'm playing up against every day. So like I said, a really great game character for basically removing debuffs, and she's great for taking taunts off. So this works really well in terms of Blitz as well, and in Alliance Wars. She works out really well, but most people just leave her on a defensive team with Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and you just need the 3 of those to form the core, essentially. You don't necessarily need Daredevil and Punisher. Obviously, they're great additions, but again, like I said, those 3 alone are great standalone characters together. Luke Cage, like I said, he basically just keeps everything together, taunting, giving defense up and regeneration. Yeah, and best part is you can farm him early in the Blitz store, and you can also farm him in the Heroes Assemble, which is pretty much like 0 to level 20. I mean, you can start farming him right away. So like I said, he ends up being one of the most resilient tanks in the game. If you can basically provide him energy and feed it to him back and forth with Jessica Jones, he basically just has back-to-back taunts, and that's like that's like 4-turn taunts, and that's heavy. Especially if he's got defense up, he becomes like this meat shield, and he just becomes incredibly difficult to deal with, especially in Alliance Wars. So that's why those guys are some of the best characters for defensive teams in Alliance Wars. Obviously, Daredevil, again, he's good to add to the 3 there, but the core is Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. That's the core. You can farm Daredevil in the arena store, which I mean isn't bad. I think from my end of things, he's only good if you pair him with Punisher as well. So if you don't have Punisher in the mix, then it makes it really hard to make them good together. I mean, Daredevil still does an ample amount of damage, but for sure you want to make sure You get those 3 at least. I don't know why I was in Mercenaries. Sorry, guys. Here, we'll just scroll down to Punisher. And where is he? Where is Mr. Punisher? Where are you? Where are you? Now, I don't have... Oh, you know what? I starred him. That's why. Sorry, guys. So, yeah. Punisher, again, he works really well because of his passive. He can basically deal with villains quite well. So, and his passive, where Daredevil is an ally and he's near him, he basically attacks. He attacks every time Daredevil gets attacked. So it's actually really nice. He does a ton of damage, and again, the saving grace with him is, unlike Daredevil, you can get him in the Assemble campaign there, and you can pretty much get him from day one. So you can literally start farming Punisher, and like I said, he does so much damage. Personally, for me, he pairs well with Daredevil, and I actually don't have them together in my Defenders team in Alliance Wars, because you only need Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. And what ends up happening too is then you can split them up and you can actually form stronger defensive rooms, because most people will usually throw meta teams at my Luke Cage and my Jessica Jones and Iron Fist already without Punisher and Daredevil, and essentially they're wasting their attacks. But that's another tidbit for another day. So that's the Defenders team. So like I said, you definitely want to put resources and gold on those guys early on, especially with how well they translate into late game. And I mean, to this day, I mean, I'm still using these guys, and I'm pretty far into the game right now, in terms of late game. And I mean, I've pretty much got them almost all to tier 12, and I want to get them up to 13, because then I can use them for Fear of the Darkness as well, especially Jessica Jones, because yeah, like I said, I just haven't been able to farm resources because it's been so dry here, guys. But anyhow, that's how the Defenders fit into the puzzle here. Moving next, we will look at the next team. Next team we've got here is the Shield roster. So again, this will give you guys a bit of flexibility with who you decide to level up. But I'll explain my reasoning why this is one of the best teams you want to be starting to farm in. And ignoring Nick Fury here, because we won't be able to unlock him unless there's a Nick Fury event. Right from the get-go, what you guys want to be doing is farming these Shield / Avenger characters. The reason being is these guys will form the basis for you will need 5 Shield or Avenger characters, so you can basically unlock Iron Man. And essentially, he is part of the Power Armor team, and missing here is Vision. But essentially, the Power Armor team is one of the best. If I would say, they would be probably the top 2 best teams right now for Alliance Wars in terms of overall offense. So I mean, if these guys are attacking, yeah, they can take down almost any meta team. This is pretty much the only team that I can feel comfortable in if I'm going in on against Ultron. So I mean, usually it takes about 2 attacks at least to take down an Ultron team if you're using meta. But if you can bring in a Power Armor team that's big enough and that's got enough output, they can take down an Ultron team. So yeah, the reason being is you've got Falcon in there for the speed up, you've got Rescue here for the barrier, and then you've got a ton of damage from War Machine and also Iron Man. And to get Iron Man, I mean, you need to get those Shield characters. So again, that's why we are making sure if we're gonna be farming these characters early on, we're gonna make sure we can get our money's worth out of it. Other reason being is you can farm these guys pretty early on here. So Shield Security, he's great because he has an automatic taunt, and you can basically his taunt basically comes on as a passive. If someone falls below 50% health, he gets a taunt, and if Nick Fury's there, he gets defense up. But again, his second ability, he can also stun. So he actually he does pretty well, and it's pretty nice. So, and then his first ability just slows. So he actually pairs really well with other characters because of the fact that he can stun. He has the potential to stun. And like I said, you can start farming them quite early on. Shield Medic, same thing. She's a nice early hero you can unlock. You can pretty much get her from day one. I think it's a her because the trailers show that he's a dude, but then I mean, if you look at her features, I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a girl. But anyhow, that's for another day. Like I said, you can get her pretty much from day one, and you can start farming her right away here. And she ends up being a very core healer until you get Night Nurse. But again, still very, very, very consistent. You can also start farming Trooper right away as well here in the Villains campaign shortly after. I don't actually use him. I never really leveled him up. I always use the Operative because she has that extra extraction, which basically stealths and heals, and I found that very, very handy, especially in blitz modes where you can basically stealth Nick Fury and then he basically gets healed up. And again, you can also focus on Shield Assault. You'll have to wait a bit later to get him, but again, another Shield character. And then you can kind of farm Hawkeye or Quake as well as the additional Avengers / Shield characters from the get-go. So that's really nice. But like I said, I would put emphasis on the Shield characters because of the fact that when you do unlock Nick Fury, what I ended up doing was I had Nick Fury unlocked and I only had like 3 out of these Shield characters leveled up high enough for them to pair well with them. And like I said already, like you'll need the Shield characters to maximize his potential, especially with his passive. Right on spawn, he grants speed up to all Shield minions. So again, that's just to minions. I mean, if it was to Shield minions and Avengers, I think that would be such a great change. But again, Nick Fury is one of the best characters already in game, and unfortunately, you have to you do have to wait for a legendary event to get him unlocked by using Kree minions. But again, like I said, if you do get him unlocked, you don't want just 2 or 3 of these Shield minions, or even just one of them high enough that they pair well. You want to make sure you can get at least 4 of them in there. And I've got my Security, Assault, Operative, and Medic. And again, like I said, if you're gonna spend time and you're gonna spend gold resourcing and investing in these guys, well, you might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and you might as well invest time as well in the other characters, which is obviously their power armor. So I mean, focusing on Iron Man as well. So I mean, right now in this moment in time, there isn't really much ways to farm the power armor team other than War Machine and Vision. And Vision, I mean, he's like pretty much on the last node that you can farm in this game. So I mean, they're definitely late game stuff. So right now, you know, it's not really easy to farm these guys. But again, you want to make sure when you do get them, you've got Iron Man unlocked. I've only got him at 10, and he hits like, wow. He hits so powerful, especially when he's got the offense up from rescue. But like I said, essentially, if you farm the Shield teams, you'll essentially have access to Iron Man if the event comes back. And I've seen occasionally now, from time to time, Fox Next actually does a pretty good job bringing events. It seems like they're trying to do legendary events almost every month now, or once every couple months. Right now, it feels very frequent. They just had the Shuri event, then they had Phoenix event, and then I mean, now they're going to be bringing back the Invisible Woman event. So they're doing pretty good. They're doing pretty good right now. And then I'll leave you guys last here with the last team, and I'll show you who that is here in 2 shakes. So last team I'm going to talk to you guys about is the Guardians. So again, these guys, they're number 3 on my list here because they are a little bit more geared towards late game, but their potential is almost everlasting. So I mean, same with the other 2 teams that we looked at. Putting time and resources into these teams, you won't regret them down the road, because there are going to be teams that you're still going to be using for a long time, and I'm still using it to this day, and I'm well late into the game here. And again, these characters are a little bit more restrictive in terms of their farming potential, so they are definitely not as easy to come by as the first set of teams, and that's why they're a little bit lower on my totem pole here. But I mean, Groot, he's great. I've got him in Fear the Darkness. He's awesome. He pairs really well with Raccoon. You can farm him later on in the Nexus, which is nice. So that's nice that you can farm him. Drax, also really good tank. Pairs really well with the Guardians. Unfortunately, you got to farm him in the arena store. They did move him over there to the arena store, and again, really great character to farm. Again, there's so many competing characters in the arena, and that's why it does end up being almost a battle because you're trying to decide who to farm. Gamora, you can get her in the Blitz. You used to be able to farm her in the campaign nodes, and then they removed that. But again, you can still get her in the Blitz, and if you Blitz often, and I do, you can farm her. Like, you can farm like 15 shards of her per day if you focus all your shards basically on her, and you can farm 10-15 shards if you max out those milestone rewards. So yeah, so that's Gamora there. Same with Mantis. You can get her in the Blitz store. Rocket, you can get Rocket in the Raid store, and again, like I said, you can get him on the orbs as well. But again, you can farm him in the Raid store, and it's more geared towards late game. And the reason why you want to farm the Guardians team early on here is you're gonna need these guys forming some of the best teams on Blitz. These guys pair so well with Minerva, especially Star-Lord. To get Star-Lord, you have to have Guardians or Ravagers. So again, these Guardians will essentially help in terms of unlocking Star-Lord, and then you'll unlock him that way. But yeah, they form some of the best Alliance War teams as well. I would say these guys are definitely in the top 3 in terms of offensive potential, especially with pairing with Thanos. You can basically keep feeding energy to Raccoon, and then he just keeps ulting, and then Star-Lord keeps blinding and ulting, and it's a mess. But it's good for you guys because this is probably one of the best meta teams there is. Again, I said that you can also have Ravagers. So one of the best Ravagers you can unlock right off the get-go here is Yondu. You can get him early on, so I would definitely recommend kind of getting him on from day one. You get him at the end of the Heroes Assemble, which is the first campaign, and he is so good. He can basically summon minions, strip buffs. He has an incredible ult, and then his passive, he basically rips positive effects. So again, there's a reason why I've put in a lot of my orange material upgrades on him, and that's one of the reasons why. And also I've got him T13 as well, which he does so good in Fear the Darkness. What ends up happening is he summons a bunch of minions. The minions can heal, or they can do additional damage output, and then if they get killed off, Minerva gets a speed buff, or essentially she gets her turn meter filled up, and then she also gets heals on their death as well. So that's really nice. And again, like I said, he does a decent amount of damage, and he does really well. Other than that, I mean, I didn't really care too much about the other Ravagers. I mean, you can farm them. You can get this guy from the Blitz store. You can get the other 2 from farming as well, and then one's from the Raid store. And again, like I said, I didn't really care too much about these guys. I just had to mention Yondu because if you need a Ravager / Guardian to start farming right off the get-go here, those are your guys. So Yondu is definitely one of the best characters to get from day one, and then you can kind of just pair that with the other guys here, like for example Drax or Groot or Raccoon, and then that way you can unlock Star-Lord. Like I said, he blinds really well. He does so well in Fear the Darkness. I'm still trying to get him up to 13 so I can use him in Fear the Darkness. I'm still missing that carbonadium, whatever it's called, and it sucks, but it is what it is. And then his Elemental Blast, which, I mean, holy smokes, it does a ton of damage. And then also he gets an assist from Guardian. So he always gets an assist from a random ally. So that's really nice. He does a ton of damage. And like I said already, these guys form one of the best Alliance War teams. These guys do a ton of damage. If you're looking for teams to take down Phoenix and Ultron in the arena, same thing. Rocket and Star-Lord are your guys. And again, like I said, when Rocket has a second ability, he basically gets a taunt from Groot, and then his ult, which I maxed out as well, he does a ton of damage and he gets counter. So again, he just does a ton of damage. I have him in Fear of the Darkness as well, paired up with Groot, and wow, these guys are a deadly combination. So definitely spend some time on that. Gamora, she definitely needs a bit more love, but like I said, I've basically focused my resources on Star-Lord, Raccoon, and Groot, and hopefully that this has been useful for you guys. Hopefully these guys will be a nice addition to your lineup. And like I said already, these are if I was to start this game from over, and you've got essentially Spider-Verse, Wakandans, you've got the new edition of the Fantastic Four now. You've got the Sinister Six. I mean, there's a whole bunch of teams, and you know, I figured, you know, it's a good way to kind of start looking at, if you're starting the game from day one, you know, what teams should you invest in. So like I said already, those are the guys I would be putting my money on, and at least that way, you know, they will progress into late game quite well. Hopefully this has been useful to you guys, and hopefully this will be some nice additions to your guys' lineup. Okay, all right, and thank you guys for watching, and as always, happy gaming.